In this tutorial, I'll show you how to make a cute melted Bocchi Blob, and I'll show you the simple pattern variations to make her friends. You can make your amigurumi in any size by just changing the size of the yarn and the size of the hook. We'll be using mostly single crochet stitches. You can do the amigurumi X style stitches or the V style stitches, whichever you prefer. The X style stitches are popular because they leave a tighter finish. I'll quickly show you how to do the amigurumi X style stitches at the start. Then I'll do the V stitches for the tutorial so you can choose. At the base, we'll use half double crochet and slip stitch stitches to make the bumps. We'll start by making the base, then make the body from the head down, then we'll do the bumps around the edge and add the features at the end. For this tutorial, I've used a size 2 or fine yarn, it's a 5-ply, and a 3.5mm hook. First, I'll show you how to do the yarn under amigurumi technique. I'll show you how to do the amigurumi stitches on a magic ring. Don't worry, I'll show you how to do the magic ring in a moment. Magic rings start with a chain, so I'll do that first. Now put your hook through the center of the loop, yarn under and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. So we'll do it again, through the center, yarn under and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. Some people do yarn under for both sections, so yarn under here and then yarn under for the second part as well. You can do whichever way you like. We'll start the tutorial now and I'll be using the V-stitch. We'll start with a magic ring. Wrap the yarn around your fingers, put your hook through the center and hook on some yarn. Wrap the yarn around your fingers on your other hand, however you like to hold it, and we start with a small chain to anchor the magic ring. Put your hook through the center, then put the yarn over the hook and pull through a loop, then yarn over and pull through both loops, and that's a regular V-stitch. So again, you put the hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. You'll need to make 6 single crochet stitches in the center of this magic ring. So that's number 3, then 4, 5, and 6. It's easier to close the magic ring if you swap that yarn tail in through to the other side, but we're not going to pull it completely closed or it makes the next stitch too hard. Next, we're going to crochet into that first stitch that we made in the magic ring, and you need to do an increase there. So you need to put your hook into that space behind both the front and back loops of that first stitch and do 1 single crochet and then go back into the same space again and do another single crochet. You can close the magic ring here or after round 2. When you're closing the magic ring, you need to notice which way the yarn is moving around inside here. It goes around this direction, so you need to pull in the same direction. If you pull back the other way, it's too hard, so make sure you're pulling in the same direction the yarn is traveling. Pull it closed firmly, but not so tight that you break your yarn. We'll get ready to crochet again now. When you put that loop back onto your hook, make sure that the side that's moving, you can see here, this side's moving, that needs to go to the top of your crochet hook, the side that's facing you. So we're going to trap that yarn tail in as we crochet now. So put your hook through the next space behind both the front and back of that loop, put the yarn tail over the top and crochet through all of that. So we'll do a single crochet there and then put the hook back into the same hole and do another single crochet there. We're going to do an increase on every stitch. In this round, there are 6 stitches, so you'll increase 6 times. Remember to trap that tail each time. Here's the 3rd increase, so a single crochet, trapping that tail, and then go back into the same space. And then we'll do our 4th increase, so a single crochet in that space, and another single crochet in that space again. I do tighten that yarn as I go around because as you're crocheting you can make that yarn tail quite loose, so if you keep tightening it as you go around you won't have any troubles. That's the 5th increase, and now here's the last one. So do 2 single crochets in this last space and that will be the end of the round. Next, go back and count the increases just to be sure. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's correct. And now we'll add a round marker. I just use a piece of yarn so that we can see when we get to the end of each round. The pattern for round 3 is an increase in one space and then a single crochet in the next space, and we'll repeat that 6 times. So in this first space there's 1 and now 2 single crochet stitches in the first space and then a single crochet in the next space. And don't forget to tighten that yarn tail every now and then to make sure it's not coming loose. So in the next space it's an increase, so that's 2 single crochets in the same space and then a single crochet in the next space. So that's 2 of the pattern. Now there's 3, an increase, and then a single crochet in the next space, and do that 3 more times to the end of the round. I'll speed up this section with set 4 and 5 so I don't waste your time, and then I'll slow back down for set 6 because that's when I get to the end of my yarn tail. Yours may appear at a different time. Make sure you keep that yarn tail firm but not too tight. Now here's the last set. This is the increase, the 6th increase, and I'll do both of those, but you can see that I'm quite close to the knot there. Don't crochet over top of the knot or that will leave a bump in your work. Just tuck it behind and do the last stitch there. My magic ring anchor loop is going to clash here with the end of a round, so I'll just move the round marker up to the next round and keep that anchor loop tucked behind for the first few stitches. So the next round is an increase and then a single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So there's my increase, then I'll do a single crochet in the next space, and I'm past the knot now, so I'll crochet through the work, through the center of that anchor loop, and crochet that together. We need to put an increase in the next space, and there's still space on the end of that magic ring loop to fit another couple of stitches. Make sure you don't crochet too many stitches into your magic ring anchor loop or you can distort your work in the end. You can see mine's nice and full there, so I won't be crocheting any more stitches in there. Your work does stretch a little when you add the stuffing, so make sure you factor that into how tight you're crocheting into your magic ring loop. It's better to have a little bit of space in your loop than to fill it up too tight and distort your work in the end. I've sped this section up a little bit too so that I don't waste your time. If you're having trouble, you can slow down the video so that you can see each stitch. This is the last round in the base of the melting Bocchi Blob. We're almost there. When you get to the end of the round, instead of doing a single crochet in the last stitch, we'll do a slip stitch. So we're almost there now. To make a slip stitch, put your hook through the next space, yarn over and pull through a loop, and use that same loop to pull through the loop on your hook. So snip off a yarn tail, pull the yarn through the loop that you're working with your hook there, then we'll put on a needle and we'll do an invisible end. To make an invisible end, you put the needle through the space that this yarn round marker was in. It's the space, one space away from the one that you just worked into. So step forward 1 space, put the needle through there behind both the front and back loops, and then go into the back of the same loop that the yarn is coming out of. So into that loop and into the back loop of the stitch below it. I guess you can see that there. So put it through the center and through that back loop, and just pull it through to make a loop the same size as all the other loops. You don't need to sew it into your work or to tie it off in any way. We'll use that yarn tail later to tie onto the yarn tail from the body. Next we'll make the top part of our little melting Bocchi blob, and we start the same way by using our magic ring anchor loop. So make a little knot in the end of your yarn and snip off the little yarn tail at the end there, and we'll start with a magic ring of 8 single crochets this time. So make a loop around your fingers, put your hook through the center and pull on a loop. Next we need to do a little chain stitch to start that magic ring loop. Pull it firmly but not too tight, Then we'll do 8 single crochets into the center of this loop. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, and I like to have that loop not crossing over. It can lock your magic ring closed if you do have it crossed over, but it also can create a little space there so that you can't pull it nice and tightly closed. So pull that closed but not completely closed, leave a little gap in the center and start working into the first stitch in the second round. So put your hook through behind both the front and back loops of that first stitch. It's quite tight, but it would be even tighter if you closed your ring already. So that's an increase, and we're going to do 2 stitches in the first space, and then we'll do a single crochet in the next space. You can wait until you've finished round 2 before you close your magic ring, but I'm going to close mine here now. Pull the loop on your hook larger so that it doesn't come undone, and remember when you're pulling your ring tight to pull it in the same direction that the yarn is travelling around that circle. Pull it nice and tight, but not so tight that you break your yarn, and you should see there that there's no centre visible there at all. It's nice and tight. And remember to put the yarn that moves at the top side or facing you on the hook, and we'll keep going with the pattern. So the next space is an increase, and I'm going to start hooking my yarn tail in there, and the next space is going to be a single crochet. So repeat that pattern, increase, single crochet the whole way around. There should be 4 increases altogether, and remember to give your yarn tail from the magic ring a little tug every now and then to make sure that it's nice and firm, but don't pull so much that it's tight and distorting your work. I often forget to put a round marker at the start of this round because there's so much going on with closing the magic ring, but it's not hard to count 4 increases and 4 single crochets in the pattern. When you get to the end of the round, make sure you do include a round marker. You can use a piece of yarn or you can use any other kind of round marker people commonly use, whatever you prefer. Here's the end of my round here, so I'm going to put in a piece of yarn as a round marker. It is a good idea to check here. There's an increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, and single crochet. So it is always a good idea to check first. In the next round, we're going to do an increase and then a single crochet in each of the next 2 spaces. So here's our increase, 2 stitches in the same space. Then there'll be a single crochet in the next space and a single crochet in the next space, and that's repeated 4 times for the round. And remember to tighten that yarn tail as you go around because it can become loose in your work. This next space is an increase, so 2 single crochets in the same space, and then a single crochet in the next space, and a single crochet in the next space. We're getting close to my knot here now, but I think I can fit another stitch in there. This is an increase. So there's my first single crochet for the increase, and I'm going to tuck that behind now because it'll get in the way and create a bump in my work. So the next space is a single crochet, and the next space is a single crochet as well. And that should be enough stitches now so that we won't create a bump from that knot. So when you do the next stitch, crochet into the stitch and into the center of that magic ring anchor loop. Crochet as many stitches as you can fit without stretching the loop. When you add stuffing at the end, your stitches will stretch just a little bit, and if you force stitches into the anchor loop, it will distort your final amigurumi toy. That's the end of round 3, so move the round marker and we'll work on round 4. I still have space for a couple more stitches in my anchor loop, and the pattern for round 4 is 3 single crochets, then an increase. So those first two I'm going to put into the anchor loop, and then I'll just follow the pattern for the rest of the round. The reason the pattern changes to 3 single crochets and then an increase is to place the increase between the previous increases. If you keep including an increase at the start of each round, you'll start to get a line forming in your work. So if you keep them between other increases, then you won't get that line happening. So the pattern again is 3 single crochets, 1 in each space, and then an increase. I'll speed up the video for the rest of this round. If you're having trouble, then slow the video down and you can watch exactly what I've done. The last stitch in the round is going to be an increase, and at the end of this round you should have 20 stitches. So here's the last space, and this one will be an increase. When you've finished that stitch, have a look at your work. It should be starting to curve. This is going to be the top of the melting Bocchi Blob's head, and it needs to start curving now. If you turn it in the other way, squeeze it so that it's not stretching your stitches in the next round, and don't forget to move your round marker. We're up to round 5 now, and in round 5 we're just going to do a single crochet in each space, so there won't be any increases. Just do a single crochet in each space. I'll speed up the video for this round so I don't waste your time. If you'd rather watch every stitch, then you can slow the video down and you can see what I've done in this round. We're up to round 5, and there are only 9 rounds in the top part of the melting Bocchi Blob, so you're halfway there. This is the last stitch in round 5, and you should have 20 stitches at the end of the round. Don't forget to move your round marker so that you can see when you're at the end of the round. In the next round we'll add some stitches for shaping. In this chicken you can see that the side goes straight down, whereas in the bocce shape it comes out a little. We'll make that in the next round. For round 6 we'll start off with a single crochet in each space for the first 2 stitches. Then we'll have a set of an increase and then 4 single crochet stitches that will repeat 3 times. And finally there'll be an increase and 2 single crochet stitches. There should be 24 stitches at the end of the round. The reason why we do the pattern this way is to place those increases between the increases from 2 rows ago. I'll speed the video up from here so that I won't waste your time, but if you do need to watch that slowly, please slow the video down here. So we're up to the last 3 spaces in round 6. This first one has an increase, and then there are 2 single crochet stitches, 1 in each space. And that's the end of round 6 and the end of your shaping. You should be able to see how it's flaring out a little bit at the bottom now. The next 3 rows are just a single crochet in each space, and that will give you just the right shaping to make the Bocchi Blob. Remember to move your round marker up to the next round so you can find when you're at the end of the round, and in this round it's just a single crochet in each space. I'll speed the video up again so that I don't waste your time, but again, if you'd like to watch every single stitch, just slow your video down and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. It's just a single crochet in each space. Move your round marker up to the next round, round 8, and we'll do the same thing again, a single crochet in each space all the way around. I'll speed the video up again so that I don't waste your time, but if there's anyone who wants to watch every stitch, just slow down now and you can watch every stitch. It's just a single crochet in each space. Here we are at the end of round 8. The shaping's looking really good now, and we'll just move that round marker up for the last time into round 9. So we'll just do a single crochet in each space the whole way around again, and this is the last row. I'll speed it up again, and if you need to watch every stitch, you can slow it down yourself. We're almost at the end of round 9, and remember the last stitch in the round is going to be a slip stitch. The slip stitch is there to pull that last stitch down in line with the rest of the row to make a nice flat edge. To make a slip stitch, put your hook through the next space, yarn over and pull through a loop, and use that same loop to pull through the loop on your hook. Just like that. Then cut off a yarn tail. It doesn't need to be too long. Pull the yarn through with your hook, and then we'll do an invisible end. Thread your yarn tail onto a needle, and then we're going to go through the same space that round marker was coming from. It's one space away from the place the yarn is coming out of now, so step across one space, go behind both the front and back legs of that loop, and then go straight back into the space that the yarn was coming through in that hole there. So it's only got one leg there and you're making the second leg, and then go through the back space of the hole beneath it and pull it to be the same size as all the other stitches. Hopefully all of your stitches are nice and even and look roughly the same size there. Next we're going to tie those two yarn tails together like I told you before from both the body and the base. Tie it quite close so that those stitches don't start to gape later, about that far away. Make it nice and tight and then snip off your yarn tails. Be careful not to cut too close to your knot or it could come undone, especially if you have slippery yarn. The next step is to crochet the two pieces together with the stitch that creates those cute little bumps. Start by making a slip knot on your hook. Then pass the hook through the body part and then through the base part close to where you tied the two yarn tails together. Yarn over and pull through a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on your hook. This is called a slip stitch. For the next space, yarn over and put your hook through both the body part and the base part. Then yarn over and pull through a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook now. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. This is called a half double crochet stitch. Then we'll do a double crochet stitch into the same space. So yarn over and put your hook through both. Yarn over and pull on a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook now. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Then yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Now we're going to do the reverse on the other side. So yarn over and put your hook through both the body part and the base part in the next space. Yarn over and pull through a loop. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops for your double crochet. Then we'll do a half double crochet, yarn over and go through the same space. Yarn over, pull through a loop. Yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And then in the next space we'll do a slip stitch. So put your hook through both the body part, the base part, and yarn over, pull through a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on your hook. That's the pattern for all 8 shells, so we'll do it again. Yarn over and go through the next space, through the body part and the base. Yarn over and pull through a loop. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Then double crochet, yarn over and go through the same space, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. I'm using a very stringy yarn, so that's a bit difficult. Make sure you get past all of the strings in each loop. Yarn over and pull through both loops. Now the other side, yarn over and go through the next space in both the body part and the base. Yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, go through the same space, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and then a slip stitch in the next space. So put your hook through both the top and the base, yarn over, pull through a loop, and pull that same loop through the loop on the hook. I'm sure you've got the idea by now, but I'll show you one more time. Yarn over and put your hook through the next space in both the body part and the base. Yarn over and pull on a loop. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Yarn over and go through the same space again. Yarn over and pull on a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. I'm having trouble with my stringy yarn again. There's a bit more there. There it is. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. This yarn is quite slippery and it's making my finger tired, so I'll loop it on a few more times. Yarn over and go into the next space in both the body part and the base. Yarn over and pull on a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And then for the half double crochet, yarn over and go through the same space. Yarn over, pull on a loop. Yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And then make a slip stitch. So put your hook through the next space in the body part and the base, yarn over, pull on a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on your hook. We'll continue this pattern all the way around the base, but part way around we'll stop and we'll put some stuffing in and then continue around to the end. For the plushy blobs I showed you at the start, I found that 8 bumps were too many for my style of crocheting, and so I did 6 bumps in the base. The way you make 6 bumps is where we have a slip stitch in this pattern. Instead of doing 1 slip stitch, I used 2 spaces and did 2 slip stitches between each bump, with 1 slip stitch in each space. That way you can have 6 evenly spaced bumps around the bottom of your Bocchi Blob. I'll speed up this section again until we get to where we add the stuffing. I've left these in for anyone who needs to watch every single stitch, and you can slow it down to a speed that makes sense to you if you need to. Use whatever stuffing you like, but I've found for me the cheapest way to fill all of my amigurumi is to buy a pillow, a fibre-filled pillow, when it's on sale. It lasts a long time when you're making little amigurumi like this. So make sure when you start you pull out a nice big loop of the yarn that's on your hook so that it doesn't come undone, and start filling with your fibre fill or whatever you're using, and put it in one big piece. Don't roll it up into little balls or it can distort your work. You'll usually need to add it in parts, so when you add the next little lump of fibre fill that you're using, make sure that you spread it evenly around inside your amigurumi. You don't want to make any bumps anywhere that will distort your work. You'll need to fill your Bocchi Blob firmly, but don't overstuff it. You want it to sit neatly when it's sitting on the table, so you don't want it to have a big rounded base. There's nothing worse than finding when you've finished your amigurumi and sewn it all together that there's not enough stuffing in the centre. So usually I squeeze quite firmly as I'm putting the stuffing into my little amigurumi to make sure that it doesn't settle down too much over time and I have an amigurumi that's not full. So we'll start again with our little bumps. Put your yarn back onto your hook. Make sure you push all of that stuffing in away from the stitches, or otherwise as you're crocheting it can get caught in your stitches. If you ended with a slip stitch as I did, the next space needs your half double crochet and double crochet increase to make the first part of the bump, and then a double crochet and a half double crochet to make the other side of the bump. I'll speed up this section again, and for mine there are only 2 bumps to go. The stitches we made to make the invisible end are sometimes a little bit tighter than the other stitches. If you massage gently with your crochet hook, you can open them up enough to be able to crochet through those stitches. I'm up to the last few stitches in my last bump here. Here's the half double crochet stitch, and I have 1 space left here to do the slip stitch into. When the space is tight, I roll my hook into it using the hook part to get into that space. Make sure you go through both the body part and the base, hook on some yarn and pull it through the loop on your hook. Then snip off a yarn tail and pull the yarn through that loop that was on the hook. Then thread your yarn tail onto a needle and we'll do an invisible end. Insert the needle into the loop that was the slip stitch at the start and pull it tight, and then put your needle back into the loop that this piece of yarn is coming through and into one of the back loops of one of the stitches below. Next we need to tie off and hide the yarn tails. So insert your needle back into the same space it came out of and go over a couple of spaces and pull the needle through a space without getting caught on any of the stitches. Switch the needle over to the other yarn tail and insert it into a space very close to where it is now, and make sure it comes out of that same space that the other yarn tail is coming through. Make sure it doesn't get caught on any of the stitches. Then tie the two yarn tails together quite firmly and we'll sew them into the work. You can tie it 2 or 3 times. I'm just going to do 2 here. If you have a slippery yarn, it might be safer to tie that 3 times. Thread the yarn onto a needle and then put the needle into the same hole, making sure you don't catch any of the stitches, and just poke it through your work and out anywhere, it doesn't matter where. Then do the same with the other yarn tail. And I want to use this yarn tail to be part of the ponytail. I tried putting the ponytail between rounds 2 and 3 in one of these and 3 and 4 in the other. You can put your ponytail wherever you like. Make sure you don't catch any of the stitches when you insert the needle, and I'm going to have it exit between rounds 3 and 4. And just a little tip to make sure it's as cute as can be, make sure where your scallops ended isn't going to be at the front of your work. Snip off the first yarn tail you put through and make sure you don't cut any of your stitches. And then we're going to make the ponytail and the stay stitches that help it keep its shape. So insert your needle near the ponytail point and make your needle exit between rounds 1 and 2 in the base. We're going to do a few stay stitches now from the bottom to the top and back to hold the piece together so that it doesn't distort when people are playing with it. So step across 1 stitch in the base and then go straight up through the work and out between rows 1 and 2 in the top. And we don't want them to be too visible, so it's better to go underneath the stitches where people can't see them and then go into the next space. So go across underneath a few stitches by sewing in under there. And then sew down through next to where you've just put the yarn through so nobody can see your stitches there. And we'll go to the opposite side from where we did before. We're just going to do the 2 stay stitches here. Don't pull too tight there, you don't want to have a dent in the top of the head. We just need it firm enough so that it won't distort too much. So go across 1 space and then up into the opposite side from what you just did. Then we'll sew under some stitches in the top again, like we did before. Then sew into the space right next to them. And this time we'll exit out where the ponytail is going to be. So just under and between those 2 pieces of yarn we already have there. I'd like to have more than 3 strands for the hair, so I'm going to put the needle in again at the base of the hair section and up through the top. And this time don't pull the yarn right through, leave a loop on the bottom side and pull your needle off on the top side. And now we should have 5 strands to work with to make the hair. Pull those strands nice and neat and then tie a knot as close to the body as you can. If you close the knot slowly, you can gently guide it down so that it gets as close to the head as possible and pull that nice and tight. You can tighten each strand of the yarn separately so that it can be nice and tight and firm so that it won't come undone. Then smooth out the strands and snip off at about a length of 1 centimetre. Like that. Then unravel the yarn to make it look more like a little ponytail with the hair sticking out. Next we'll make some hair ties. You'll need a piece of yarn about 40 centimetres long. Make a loop and wrap one end in through the centre of that loop 6 times. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6. Now when you close that loop, do it slowly so you don't create a tangled mess, and the loop will close in on itself, creating a nice neat little knot. You can stop about there if you want a big loop, or if you want to make a tiny loop, just pull it tight. I'm pulling mine quite tight so that I can make a little, like a little bobble for a hair tie. And I'm going to make the same thing in blue, so make another loop and go into the center 6 times with one of the pieces of yarn from one of the ends, either or, it doesn't matter. And just loop it through 6 times. And then close it slowly so that it doesn't create a tangled mess. It's good to adjust it with your fingers there in the center if necessary. Can you see how it loops on top of itself? and those little loops are going to form the shape of the hair tie. Make sure they're roughly the same size, and then we'll sew them onto the head. Just a quick interruption here. Please note the position of the hair ties. I made this left-handed version so you can follow along, forgetting that asymmetrical designs would end up on the opposite side. So the next section is the reverse of what it should be. I'm sorry about that. Thread one of the yarn tails onto a needle and sew right next to the hair, down through into the base of the bocce doll. Then thread the other end of the yarn tail onto a needle. Then we'll sew underneath the hair knot there, down into the base of the doll. So go in under the hair knot there and come out the same hole in the base. Make sure you're satisfied with the position and adjust if necessary, and then we'll tie the ends together. I just tie mine together in a regular knot by crossing over once like this, and then crossing over again a second time. You can tie a third time if you like. Next, I sew the yarn tails into the body like this. Poke it up anywhere through the body there, it doesn't matter, and pull tight. That pulls the knot in, and then do the same thing for the other yarn tail. Poke it out anywhere you like. Then pull the yarn tail tight and snip off the end. By pulling it tight and snipping it off, that yarn tail will pop back into the body and you won't be able to see it. If you can still see your yarn tail, just massage the body and it will pull the yarn tails inside. Now we'll do the same thing for the blue bobble for the top side. So go into the same hole that you used for the yellow bobble and go down through the base. Then sew the other yarn tail about 2 stitches across on the top side and sew back down into that same hole you used at the base and tie the 2 yarn tails together. Make sure you're happy with the position first before you tie off. It should look something like this. Then tie your 2 pieces of yarn together and sew them up into the body as we did with the yellow part. Next we'll sew on the eyes. They need to be 3 stitches across from the hair tie, like this. There's 3 stitches across. So 1, 2, 3, they'll need to go in there. So go in the back and come out roughly in that position. Then they need to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches from the top. So I need to be up 1 stitch higher than I was. So there it is. Now when you pull your yarn through, leave a tail so that we can tie it off. They need to be across 2 stitches and down 1, and then come out 2 stitches below where you entered in for the top of the eye. So it's going to be a little V stitch on its side. Then we'll go back into that same stitch we just entered there to make the rest of the V. I'll just show you the samples so you can see what we're making. Here's the amigurumi style one and the V-stitch style one, and they're 2 stitches apart at the center. So we need to go across 2 at the center and then another 2 to get to the other edge of the eye. Make sure your needle comes out in the same round line as the top of the other eye, and then come back 2 stitches and down 1, and then back out 2 stitches away at the bottom, just below the other one. So there's your top side of the V. Now we'll go into that same hole again and out through the back through the same hole that we're using for entering there with the black piece of yarn. And be sure to check your work before you tie off. Have a look and make sure you're satisfied with the way the eyes look, and then tie off and sew your yarn tails back into the body, the same as we did for the hair tie. And that's all there is to it. You're all done. Your melting Bocchi Blob is finished. If you'd like to make one in a larger size, all you need to do is change the yarn size and the hook size. And for amigurumi, it's always a good idea to go down 1 hook size from what's recommended on the package. You can make Bocchi's friends using the same pattern. To make the blue-haired one, you need to make straight flat eyes, which is easy, just across 2 stitches. And to make the hair, I've just used a braid. There are 2 strands of yarn in each braid, and 2 parts of the braid are blue and 1 part is black to make the typical black stripe across her hair. The yellow-haired friend has happy-looking eyes, long hair on the opposite side, and a little Dorito chip at the top. The red-haired friend's hair tie is on the opposite side to Bocchi, and it's in the shape of a shrimp. You can make that shape by wrapping the yarn around your fingers before tying the knot. That way it becomes that shape. She also has happy eyes. And that's the full set. I went a bit overboard making them because it's Taizozaki's favourite animation. Check out Bocchi the Rock and let Taizo know what you think of it.